What's up, YouTube? In this video, we are going to continue our DIYer Homegamer tool series and talk about all things impact. So in the last video, I talked about how I don't have a 1/2 inch set because really impact is where it's at. And it is, because when you get up to those bolt sizes, typically, you could bust out a really big breaker bar, like a 1/2 inch size, and I actually have that. And I'll start with that actually. So this is not an impact tool, but I wanted to just fit it in the frame. I can't really show too much of a close-up. Nothing special from Harbor Freight. I actually do really recommend that you get one of these or have one in your arsenal, in your toolkit, because it is 1/2 inch and there are times where, for whatever reason, you can't impact something off easily, or you just don't want to, you can't fit an impact gun in, but you do have the impact sockets or a 1/2 inch socket, and you need something really, really long that is even longer and beefier than your 3/8 inch bar from that Tekton kit. This will do the job. I mean, I've used this in some really wicked tight bolts. And you can also put like a pipe on the end of this. I have put the end of my jack, actually, my hydraulic jack, on the end of this before to crack really, really tight bolts. But by and large, you don't have to do that with impact. But I just wanted to quickly mention that right off the bat. This is a good to have insurance policy for you. All right, so we'll get the real show on the road. This is just an assortment socket set from Harbor Freight, Pittsburgh. And I'll show it here, but I'm actually going to be honest, I don't recommend it. And the reason why is, I mean, if you just want an assorted set, it's fine, but it has skips, and it just drives me crazy that it has skips. It doesn't have like an 18mm. It doesn't have deep. These are only shallow. And you can probably find a kit like this, maybe at Harbor Freight now, that has a little bit more to it, and that would be fine. But really, you just need the metric side for working on cars and vans and most automotive things today. So a lot of the Imperial stuff that's in here is just completely wasted. I've never used it. Sometimes these are just too shallow even, and that's really where you need a deep well socket. So if you want to go to Harbor Freight, you have one local and you want to check out their assortment, that's completely fine. I actually have a couple Tekton sets I'll show. There's really nothing more to this though. It has a couple of extensions and some 3/8 even in here. I think some of these are just 3/8. They're not all 1/2 inch. So again, kind of handy, but I keep this at the bottom of one of my tool drawers and just never pull it out anymore. I really don't recommend something like this. Just stick with metric and get something with no skip, and add accessories as you need them. Okay, so these are my bread and butter socket sets. And right in front of you here is a 3/8 inch drive set from Tekton that goes from 7 all the way to 19. And it's on actually a Tekton rail that you put the socket on and you twist it and it locks in place. But these are just shallow drive sockets, 6-point, as you can see here. Well made, they work really great. And so if you have a 3/8 inch drive impact wrench, they'll work just fine. Up here is a deep well Tekton impact wrench set, and I use this one all the time. The 22, the 21, 19, 17, they're really great to have. The 22 for lug nuts on my Odysseys, use that one a lot. And it goes from 10 to 24, no skips, so you know that you have what you need. Don't have to worry about not having an 18 available or some other random size. Now, here's the catch with all of this. There is a set that Tekton sells that's really comprehensive. And for maybe a couple $100, I think, you can get like every 1/2 inch deep and shallow impact drive that you'd ever need. It's like a master kit, basically. I don't know how far it goes up. Might not be quite considered a master where it's like every single socket on the 1/2 inch spectrum, but it's really comprehensive. I just don't think that I need something that extensive. Between these two sets here, I've got most of what I need. Now, when it comes to impact sockets, occasionally you will need to go higher, such as this. This is a 36 inch Tekton 6-point socket. And these are all 6-point sockets, but I just buy these a la carte when I need them for, axle nuts basically is what they really come down to. When you get into this kind of a range of a size, I mean, why not just invest as you need it, you know? You can buy like axle nut socket sets where they include like 32, 34, 36. I don't know what all the exact sizes are, but yeah, I mean, I have a 36 for mine. And again, just when you need it. I would rather not waste the space and have a really expansive set when I can just piece together what I need. That's me personally. If I were to start over, I would say this is fine if you have a 3/8 inch impact wrench, but I might actually just do a deep and a shallow from 10 to 24, and then a la carte, you know, whatever I need. Okay, moving on. This is a set of hex impact sockets, and I got this from Sunnex. I don't think Tekton sold these. Maybe they do now, I'm not sure. But these are a pretty good deal on Amazon, and they basically go from 6 to 19 millimeters, but there are skips. And then there are some Imperial sockets. I've never actually used any of those that I can recall. But on some cars, you're gonna need something like this, just in various places. Some drain bolts, I believe, are hex, and some brake parts. So I've used it quite a bit. I love it. It's great to have, really handy. Haven't broken any of them, but yeah, recommend having one of these in your toolkit. Okay, so as far as accessories go, kind of the usual suspects, some extensions, the adapters that we talked about in that last video. This goes from 1/2 inch to 3/8, I believe, and then 3/8 to 1/2 inch. Now, honestly, a lot of this stuff here is not really necessary. I can't say that I use any of this all that much, so you could probably skip on it. It'd be good to have a couple of extensions, but this right here, if you just have those two, you know, 1/2 to 3/8, 3/8 to 1/2, that is probably worthwhile, but they probably come in a kit of 4. They're not that expensive, and having impact rated adapters, I like to have it personally, but I really don't use it all that much, so I can't say that you need it as a DIYer. If the need comes up, you could go get it at that point, but it's, you know, yeah, I'll just leave it at that. I don't think I can recommend it. I was wondering why one of my extensions said Tekton. I didn't remember buying an extension from Tekton. It's actually part of this flip socket set. And the idea with this is that you have 6 different sizes depending on the orientation of these sockets. So you can see here, we've got 3/4, and if you flip it, it's 13/16. And you just put this in either side, and voila. These are really great for lug nuts when you're working on different makes and models. That's what I bought it for, because I do travel to a group that works on all kinds of different cars from time to time. So the 7/8 inch is really the 22 equivalency, and I use that quite a bit for cars like mine, my Odyssey. But they have a good assortment of sizes. So 17 and 19, we already talked about this one, 3/4 and 13/16, and then 7/8 and 21. Handy to have, unless you're doing something similar to what I do, where you're on the go and you just want to have the lug nut sockets, because that's typically what you need to get access to brakes, and you're not really doing a whole lot of suspension stuff, but just, yeah, a lot of brakes and things like that. Hey, that's pretty handy, but I wouldn't recommend it for a DIYer. It's just something I have and just wanted to show it. Okay, and this is the real meat and potatoes of everything that you want. These are impact wrenches. So I love Ryobi. It's a fantastic line of power tools, and TTI makes Ryobi as well as Milwaukee. So really it's the same company making both of these tools. For a DIYer, you can probably get away, with one exception, and I'll explain that, with just having Ryobi. And this is an older model, so it only has like 300 foot-pounds of breakaway torque. I've found that to be plenty sufficient for all of my needs so far, but I might have something coming up, a timing belt job on an Odyssey, where I need something bigger. But for getting lug nuts off, for getting suspension parts off, if you can fit this in, it usually does the job. I included an impact driver too. Now this is from Milwaukee and their 12-volt line, but if you put a little adapter on this, So you can get an impact rated set of adapters, and you could put any of these, you know, it goes up to 1/2 inch. That might be a bit extreme, but definitely the 3/8 would fit on here fine and do just fine. But yeah, you can pop that on, pop a 3/8 inch socket on here too, and go to town. And this has pretty good breakaway torque. It might be up to like 100 something. I don't have the specs in front of me. I'll try and Google them. But anyway, great little unit. If you're just at the top of an engine bay and you've got your sockets out, your impact sockets, go ahead and, you know, use them. And I see people using chrome with this all the time. I mean, I don't like doing that, but if you've already loosened them, especially just zipping them on and zipping them off with something like this is really handy. And so I can't really see the harm in it. Just know that you might break one of your chrome sockets. It might, you know, shatter. And I believe that the difference is that the chrome are thinner walled, and so they just can't handle that impact hammering and all of that action that goes on. This is a 3/8 inch air impact wrench from Astro, and it's their Onyx. It's a little mini one, and it can get in some pretty tight spaces. That's why I bought it. Before I got this, I think I had this, and I was really getting a bunch of air tools, and I had quite the collection of them. So this just was along that line of thought. I have used it, but honestly, I don't like to pull out the air compressor and do all the things that have to be done with it when I can just reach and grab this, pop a battery in it, and go to town. So I can't really say I recommend it unless your use case warrants needing it. It's a great little tool, has tons of power to it. I think it is kind of in the same range as this, maybe a little bit more or less. I'll put on screen if I can find the spec sheet on it. But anyway, it's not bad. I just wouldn't say for a DIYer you're going to need something like this. But actually, that's kind of a key point. Find an impact wrench that you like. I mean, if you're already in like the 12 volt lineup, okay, this might not be a bad thing to have. If you're already in the Ryobi lineup, this might not be a bad one to grab. Actually, maybe get the more up-to-date one so you have just more breakaway torque and you don't have to get an older unit like this and then upgrade it later. But yeah, I mean, if you're in, let's say, the Walmart brand, you know, Hyper Tough, I think, I forget what theirs are, Heart, then yeah, go for it. Cobalt, go for it. Whatever battery system you're in, I just go with whatever they carry. If you're not in one, I highly recommend Ryobi because they just have so much versatility and so many tools that you'll probably use as a DIYer, maybe as a homeowner too. But yeah, you do need an impact wrench. And so that would be this guy here. This is an impact driver. This is a 3/8 inch impact wrench. So you need something. Pick your preference and run with it. But typically you're going to stay on the 1/2 inch size for most impact needs. It is nice though, again, to have a 3/8 or, you know, an impact driver with the compatibility to pop a couple 3/8 inch sockets on just for when space is tight. One other thing, and this is not impact related, but the reason that I actually went into the M12 system, which is this right here, these two tools share the same battery or battery system, was the ratchet. Now, as much as I love Ryobi and the fact that they will never change their battery on the OnePlus system, and they won't, they've committed to their consumer base that they won't do that. This is the battery, and as you can see, it's pretty bulky, but fine for an impact wrench. But when you need to get into an engine bay or you're in a tight spot, something this bulky isn't going to cut it. That's where you need one of these tools, strictly in my opinion. And you can see their battery is right in line with the tool, real slender, and that's why I have this kit. So again, you might want to consider that if you don't have any power tools at all, because a kit like this will be a little bit more versatile, and I think will be a little easier to work with under the hood of some cars and for some projects. So just keep that in mind. I just wanted to, you know, mention that. All right, I will admit I completely forgot something, and this is actually the next day, and I already had the video done, but I didn't want to neglect the impact screwdriver set that I have here. So this is from Harbor Freight, but you could get it, I think Tekton even sells one. You can get any variation that you want. I will just note that the one from Harbor Freight here, the unit itself is fine, and it's just a screwdriver. The idea with this is for, let's say, brake rotor screws is like the #1 use case for these. You pop this on and then you put in your bit. And then the idea is that you hold it and then you strike it with a hammer, and it will, I think you want to hold it and, grip it towards, counterclockwise, or put your force that way. And then you strike it with a hammer and it will help you with really, really tight screws. Now, I do have additional bits here, and they're from Tekton because the ones from Harbor Freight broke. And honestly, I mean, I don't know, the ones from Tekton might break too. The reality of these screwdriver sets is just that, I mean, they're gonna get chewed up. These Phillips bits just don't last, in my experience. The other thing to note too, just real quick on this topic, I think that there's a specialty screwdriver for Hondas and Toyotas, and it's like a J something. I'll try and find it and throw it into the text on this channel. So this technically might not be the right tool, even if it looks like a Phillips screw, but it does work for me. I mean, I have used it. I want to say, I think I've used it on a Honda. I'm not positive on that, but I'm pretty sure. So anyway, really, really needed. Highly recommend it. I mean, they're not that expensive, but like the only other option to this would be, I guess, drilling the screw out. And I've had to do that before. It's really not pleasant. It's not hard, but it's not pleasant. So this is really necessary. One more thing I forgot, ear protection. When you're using an impact wrench, you want to protect your ears. These are cheap, I think 10 bucks off Amazon. And anything will do, just something to protect your ears when you're using one of these. I don't use it all the time, so from a DIYer standpoint, you might be able to get away with it, especially if you're like working outside. But I will tell you, these impact wrenches are loud, and I do have a headache if I'm using one for an extended period of time after I'm done with whatever job I'm working on. So cheap insurance, save your ears or headaches, and yeah, they're just nice to have. Have a couple even. That way if you have multiple people or a helper, you can hand one to them too. But yeah, that's pretty much it. That's everything I wanted to cover for impact. There's not a lot to it. I mean, well, there can be, but from a DIY perspective, you just need something with enough ugga-duggas, basically, as Erica with South Main Auto likes to say, and I'm sure maybe that's a term that a lot of people use. I don't know if it originated with him, but you just need something with enough oomph to get the bolt off. And it is nice. I like having this. It has a couple different speeds. I actually use speed 1 to put lug nuts back on. Get them on hand tight first, or rather hand start them. But then I pop it on setting 1, and throw it into forward, and then rip them on there before I lower the car down and torque them down. So it's nice to have a few options like that, but otherwise, go with what you like and what you think you'll use. Because at the end of the day, this is just to get the really big bolts off, or the really tight ones. I hope this helps. If it did, please give me a thumbs up or a like. Please subscribe to the channel for future content. And please comment below if you have any tools that you like in the impact lineup, especially those that I might be in the same system for and could use. All right, thanks and take care. Peace.